Imagine you are completely alone. No walls. No light. No sound except the wind. And something, just beyond the edge of the darkness, is watching you. Now imagine that every single human being who ever lived before you felt this exact same feeling. Every night. For 2 million years. And yet they survived. There was a reason for that. One unspoken rule. One ancient instinct so deeply wired into the human brain that breaking it meant you simply did not wake up the next morning. Tonight, we uncover it. Before fire was mastered. Before language was fully formed. Before anyone could even explain why, ancient humans already knew the rule. The prehistoric night was not simply dark. It was an entirely different world. A world that did not belong to us. The moment the sun dropped below the horizon, the psychological shift was immediate and total. The warmth disappeared. The visual landscape, every tree, every rock, every pathway that offered safety just an hour ago, vanished into an impenetrable black. And the sounds began. Cracks of branches. Low, resonant growls at undetermined distances. The kind of silence that somehow sounds louder than noise, because your brain knows something is filling it. Paleoanthropologists estimate that for early Homo sapiens and their evolutionary predecessors, the hours between dusk and dawn represented the single most dangerous window of their entire existence. Not because of storms. Not because of cold, though cold was certainly lethal. But because of predators whose entire biology was engineered for exactly this environment. The saber-toothed cat. The cave hyena. The giant short-faced bear. These were not simply large animals. They were nocturnal apex hunters with forward-facing eyes built for low-light precision, with auditory systems capable of detecting a heartbeat from 30 meters away. And they were not rare. Archaeological evidence from sites across Africa and Europe confirms that large predator populations shared nearly identical territory with early human settlements. This was not an abstract threat. It was a nightly reality. And yet, here is where it becomes psychologically extraordinary. Early humans did not simply hide and hope. They developed something far more sophisticated. Something that went beyond individual survival instinct. Something that became the foundation of all human social behavior that followed. They developed a rule. An unspoken, universal, non-negotiable rule about the night. Nobody wrote it down. There were no laws, no councils, no spoken decree. But the rule was enforced with a consistency more powerful than any written law in human history. No one left the fire alone. That is the rule. In its entirety. Deceptively simple. Cosmically important. Archaeological excavations across multiple continents, from the Blombos Cave in South Africa to the Wonderwerk Cave in the Northern Cape, have uncovered controlled fire evidence dating back approximately 1 million years. But what researchers found around those fire sites is what truly changed our understanding of prehistoric psychology. The bones. The debris. The spatial organization of sleeping areas. Every single ancient campsite shows the same pattern. Individuals did not scatter. They clustered. Tightly. In a circular formation around a central heat source. And the evidence suggests that within those groups, sleep was never simultaneous. Dr. Jerome Ziegel of UCLA, studying modern hunter-gatherer tribes in Africa and Bolivia, groups whose sleep patterns are considered the closest living model to prehistoric behavior, discovered something that dismantled a core assumption of modern sleep science. Ancient humans did not sleep in one long unbroken block. They slept in carefully staggered rotations. At any given moment throughout the night, a portion of the group remained conscious. Watching. Listening. Positioned between the sleeping members and the outer darkness. The fire was never left unattended because an unattended fire is a dying fire. And a dying fire is an open invitation. This was not accidental. It was coordinated social behavior. It was, in every functional sense, a night watch system operating tens of thousands of years before any formal military structure existed. And here is the part that modern neuroscience finds deeply compelling. This behavior was not simply strategic. It was psychologically transformative. The act of maintaining the night watch, of staying awake while others trusted you with their safety, appears to have been one of the earliest foundations of human social bonding. Shared vulnerability creates trust. Trust creates community. Community creates civilization. The campfire circle was not just a survival mechanism. It was the first boardroom. The first classroom. The first place where stories were told, fears were named, and the darkness outside was collectively and consciously refused entry. Cave art sites, particularly those in Lascaux, France and Altamira, Spain, show images concentrated in areas where firelight would have been most effective. Researchers now believe many of these images were created during those exact night watch hours, the conscious mind filling time, processing the world, communicating across time in the only language available. Visual marks on stone. The night watch gave birth to art. To language. Possibly to abstract thought itself. But here is the revelation that will genuinely unsettle you. The rule was not about the predators outside. Not entirely. Anthropological data from isolated tribal populations, and forensic analysis of ancient settlement conflicts, suggests something deeply uncomfortable. The real enforcement of the unspoken night rule was directed inward. The most catastrophic threat to a prehistoric group at night was not the predator beyond the firelight. It was the individual within the group who decided they were exempt from the rule. Archaeological evidence from multiple Neanderthal and early Homo sapiens sites shows skeletal remains with trauma patterns inconsistent with animal attack. The angles, the precision, the context, they suggest group-enforced consequences for behavior that endangered the collective. In other words, breaking the night rule was treated as the most serious transgression possible. More serious than theft. More serious than conflict over resources. Because breaking the night rule in a group of 30 people could mean that all 30 did not see morning. The psychological mechanism behind this is now studied in modern behavioral science under the concept of collective survival pressure. When a group shares an existential threat, the enforcement of group norms becomes automatic and absolute. Not out of cruelty. Out of necessity so fundamental it bypassed conscious moral reasoning entirely. The night made ancient humans fiercely, almost violently, cooperative. Because cooperation was not a virtue in that world. It was the only available option. 2 million years of darkness shaped every instinct you carry right now. The reason you feel uneasy alone at night. The reason a lit room feels safer than a dark one regardless of actual danger. The reason you sleep better when someone else is nearby. These are not weaknesses. These are the inherited outputs of an unbroken chain of survivors, every single one of whom followed the rule. They stayed close to the fire. They watched the darkness together. And they made it to morning. So here is the question we leave you with tonight. In a world where we have eliminated almost every physical threat that shaped us, no predators, no true darkness, no communal fire, what happens to the part of our brain that still believes the night is watching? And what does it mean that we now face most of our fears completely, voluntarily, alone? If questions like this keep you awake at night, which, given what you now know, is deeply appropriate, then the Erased Histories is the channel built for you. Subscribe. Because the stories most worth knowing are the ones nobody told you.